Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Knots here with Gonzaga Outdoors. I'm Dave. My other camera in my laptop has just gotten so bad I didn't even want to use it, but I'm here. Same Dave. Hi. Today I want to talk to you about just one knot and a couple of things about it. It's the dreaded and loved bowline. So here's a bowline. It's spelled just like bowline. So if you've ever seen that in writing and wondered what a bowline is or a bowline, it's a bowline. So this is what it looks like. It has some similarities to figure eight and kind of how it looks, but it's hard to make out where all the parts go right here. So we're gonna tie a few of them and I'll explain them. The thing about a bowline, there's a few reasons to really like a bowline. One, there's lots of tricks to tie them. And so people can tie them one-handed or they can tie them by throwing the end of the rope in a really specific way. I'm not going to teach any of those things today, but you can look them up online. They're pretty cool. There's ways that people just kind of flip their hands around and tie them really fast. So they're handy that way. They're great because if you tie them and pull really hard on them for an extended amount of time, they still come apart really, really easily. So that's a reason why a lot of sailors use them to connect to the actual sails and everything, because you can pull hard on your sail all day and at the end of the day you can still untie the knot. So it's really great. This is a knot that gets tied around something generally, and so that's how we're going to learn it. There's lots of tricks. People have probably heard different sort of phrases. I'll probably sprinkle those in here a bit, but I'm mostly just going to teach you kind of how the actual knot works. So we're going to tie around this bit of webbing here. That's going to be our tree or our sail or whatever we're tying to. And so we're going to start by just taking the end of the rope and putting it through or around whatever we're tying to. In this case, it's kind of interesting because if this is the working end of the rope, the end that we're actually going to pull on, that's not the end that we're going to run around something. So I'm going to start with my bitter end, my other end of the rope. And I'm going to put it around our item or whatever we're tying to. And in the working end of the rope, I'm going to make a loop. And there's a couple things that are pretty important with this loop. The first being that the working end has to be underneath. So if you see this end here is on top and this end's underneath, and that's going to be really, really important. So we're going to make a loop. Easy so far. We're going to take our bitter end and we're going to come up from underneath this loop. So up from underneath, just like that. So it's coming up. And then we've got to go back kind of down and around our working end here. So you got to go under and around it. Now this is where you've probably heard something like the rabbit comes up out of the hole, right? It goes around the back of the tree. So it's around behind here, and then it's going to go back down into its hole. So it comes out, it does a lap around the tree and goes back in the hole. And then as this gets tighter, you can see the working end has this loop here with this bite of rope in the bitter end and the standing end. And so the bite grabs onto this and kind of tightens it down into that loop. Right. So there's your bowline. We just tied a bowline. I'm going to do it exactly the same way again so you can see it. Okay. We've got standing end, working end. Give us a loop with the working end underneath. Standing end comes up from underneath the hole, the loop, around this working end. Okay. And it's going to go right back into our loop. So we have a loop with a bite inside it. So the great thing about a bowline, and I'm gonna actually zoom in here. Look at that. That's production value. one of the great things about a bowline is that it's easy to untie. One of the problems with it being so easy to untie is if you are using this in an application where it's going to bounce a lot, it actually can untie, right? Because it just doesn't close down that tightly, which is both its strength and its weakness. So if we're going to use this in an application that involves safety, or if we're going to use it in an application where we do think it'll be weighted and unweighted a bunch of times, you can actually, this is slowly actually working itself apart, even just talking about it. You can see this has popped up now and wants to go back in there. So if we have one of those situations, what we're going to do is back it up. So I need a little bit more tail on my bowline. So that's good. I've got some more tail here. Then all we're going to do is tie it around this loop, right? Because we've got this loop that goes around through our anchor. And so we're just going to tie, I just tie an overhand. There's lots of fancy bowline finishes that all have names. And again, you can Google those if you're interested. But see, all I did here, if you can see it, is I just tied an overhand knot with the end around the outside of that loop. So that's just, let me see if I can show you. There it is, separated out a little bit. So you've just got an overhand knot that's tied around this loop. And so then what'll happen if this bounces is this will just jam up in the knot. So that's a really, really simple backup. Like I said, there's a bunch of ways to do that. But you really, if you want to back it up, if you think you're going to be bouncing on it at all. So one of the classic scenarios for that is, you know, in any rock climbing scenario, if there's a rappel where you're gonna, you're worried about how smoothly you can do it, which is maybe all of them, you want to back up your bowline. The other thing in a properly tied bowline is this finish part, the tail, should be, it should come out of the body of the knot on the inside of this loop. So let me show you the opposite of that. You see how, before I do that, see how this is the tail here. It comes around the working end and comes out on the inside, which is right where we want it to be. The opposite of that would be if you tied this, let's see, if you came around here and then back out on the outside, it's not really a properly tied bowline, right? So like in this case, sometimes it's because it was tied wrong. Sometimes it's just you need to dress your knot so that it's all organized better. But in this case, we really just need to kind of flip it over and clean it up. There we go. Now it's back to being on the inside of this loop here. So that's a bowline. Practice it, practice it, practice it. It's one that is kind of challenging for people to figure out initially. And then once you figure it out, you can tie it right every time, and it's really pretty simple to do. Really kind of simple to do. Around, back down, pull it tight. Clean it up, this stuff's so stiff. There we go. So this one's tied on the other side. Thanks for watching. Hope you have a great afternoon.